It's good to be here, as I said. I'm going to be presenting on my first Laravel package and PHP package. I should begin with a major warning. This is emphatically a work in progress. Uh, I am not presenting a finished product. I am presenting an experience, as it were. Um, so uh, my name is Ismael Velasco. I am a Mexican cosmopolite living in Wales in the UK. I am a PHP developer and a NASA space program engineer. Only one of those is true. I will let you guess which of those two is true. And you can find me on Twitter on Dev on a Journey, and I've become quite active there. I'd love you to join, follow. I'll follow you back. It's a fantastic thing to be able to have the conversations really about development, about everything from technical trips to ethical trips along the way. So please join in and reach out. It would make me very happy. So what are the goals of this presentation? The first one is to share my learning. And the questions I'm going to touch on is how do you find an idea for a package if you're starting on this journey? How do you create a PHP package? And how do you create a Laravel package? So that's what I've tried and learned. The second goal is to validate the idea for Laravel Rapid for my package. Is there a need for the package? Or did I just not find what I needed and it exists 10 times over and I am reinventing the wheel? Or nobody cares except me? Does it do what it needs to? Clearly not now, because it's work in progress, but I will show you what I intend to do and you can tell me whether it's missing anything. And finally, will it gain traction? So do you think anybody else will use it? And the last goal is to get some feedback and potentially, if you like it, to collaborate in the spirit of open source. What would you improve in the implementation? And would you like to contribute? So those are really the goals for me. So in terms of the beginning, what is the journey of this baby Laravel package? It is still a child. So my journey begins with a use case. And the use case is that I wanted to start blogging. I decided to join the PHP community, the software, the programming community in earnest. I created my dev Twitter account and I thought, okay, I am ready to blog. I'm ready to have a website. But I don't want to spend time fiddling about. So that was one thing. I wanted to get started straight away. I didn't want to spend more than 5 or 10 minutes setting up. I just wanted to blog. I didn't care too much about having a hyper-personalized front end. I wanted a minimum viable website that I could just start blogging now. Because I think the barrier for many of us is that first step. That's where the biggest friction is. You have your ideas, you know you want to share, but actually setting up your environment, getting your web page right, all of those things can be the thing that stop you from ever going live. So I really didn't want to faff about with that. But I had an extra requirement. I could, go for WordPress, for example. But there were two things I wanted to do. One is, although I wanted to get started straight away, I also did not want to get trapped into a CMS ecosystem if I wanted to step beyond it. So for instance, some of you may have seen me co-present with Luke Skywalker, a chatbot I created. And I'd quite like to put this chatbot on my website at some point. And doing that on WordPress would be a bit tricky because you have to have a port open and running all the time, and it's basically an application. So if you're going to have an application inside WordPress, then am I going to create a theme, a plugin? And I've worked in WordPress before. You can even turn it into OOP-ish type approach, but it's a faff, and I don't want faff. I want something totally scalable, totally customizable. I might want to do something like Laracas, have videos and have subscriptions. All of those things I want to be able to expand. So I needed a platform that was infinitely scalable and expandable, but that was instantly available as a blog. And I looked at various things. I looked at Gatsby.js, which looks fantastic. But as I started looking at it more, I realized that it was actually quite a learning curve. It was extremely powerful. I might go into it at some point. I might engage my package or my website to it. But really, in terms of getting started straight away and being able to grow that as a PHP developer, sort of moving into Gatsby.js, had a learning curve that was more than I wanted to invest. And so there were a number of options out there. None of them fit my use case, and my use case was get started and published, deploying, get started in 10 minutes, have your first blogs in half an hour, be live in an hour or two, and then be able to tweak, to grow, to change the front end to a reactive one, to a single page application, to whatever you want. But start now and run as far as you want. And um, our own Steve McDougall flagged to me Laravel Wink. And Laravel had advantages because obviously I've been working on Laravel for a while, so it's quite familiar. It means that I can get, as a Laravel developer, I can get started pretty quickly. I understand the logic. And secondly, it is infinite. I can actually do anything. I can start with a blog or a website and end up with an enterprise application. And so my website can be simply my shop front. Watch this space, this great app is coming, and suddenly I have my software as a service ready to go in 6 months' time in the same place, and I haven't had to do anything. So Laravel had attractions, and he mentioned a package called Laravel Wink, which is a micro CMS, is how I would describe it. It allows you to create blogs and store them very quickly. So that looked good. Laravel Wink with Laravel. I have a CMS, I can do it. Now, when I looked at Laravel Wink, it had two issues with it. One was it is explicitly purely a CMS. It doesn't do anything on the front end. It is entirely agnostic. It doesn't publish your posts anywhere until you kind of, you create your app, you do your views, you do your controllers, and then you hook into the CMS to work. But it meant it wasn't ready. I still had to do all of that. And secondly, it's still a work in progress. It has been created by Mohammed Saeed, Dem Saeed, who is one of the first actually full-time Laravel employee. But this is obviously a side project. It is used by Laravel News, so it sounds like he created it for a specific purpose and put it out there, but it needs a certain amount of work. So are we there yet? Can I get started? Can I get started? And the answer, as far as I could tell, was no. I could find nothing out there that would allow me to, I could find some things that would allow me to get started very quickly, but not that would allow me to customize without constraints and to expand. Or I could find things that could allow me to do the latter, but not actually get started very quickly. And most would allow me to do neither, really. So this is where the motivation came. I realized there is nothing to satisfy my need. And the result was that, of course, I had to work triple to get, instead of spending 5 minutes getting my blog together, I've now spent a month of my spare time working on a package that will allow me to create my blog in 5 minutes. So I think this is probably quite a familiar story to most of us, the joys and trade-offs of automation. It's going to take me 3 hours to automate a script for something that takes me 5 minutes to do. But of course, it's also a learning opportunity. And this really began, I didn't begin by saying I'm going to create a new package. I began by saying, great, here is Laravel and Laravel Wink. This is all I need. So I am just going to tweak it. I'm going to tweak Laravel Wink, and I'm going to just add a pull request. So I thought I'm going to submit a pull request to auto-generate a controller. So the way Laravel Wink works is that it's essentially sort of, it has two commands, which are install and migrate, and then you have your CMS ready with views, etc., that you can use with and configure from your application. So I thought it's already got those two commands. What if you add a third command to generate a controller? And so I did that. I submitted it. But then I kind of thought, well, clearly that's not enough, because you still need the roots, you still need the views. So I started adding to it. And then I realized that I was actually taking this out of the scope of Wink. Wink is very consciously a CMS that is agnostic, that is disconnected from any front end or any sort of application logic. So it was likely that my pull request would never be accepted in the first place, but also if I added all these other commands, they might or might not get accepted, but probably not. And in any case, it was mission creep. So basically, as I started tweaking, I realized rather than add 27 tweaks to somebody else's package, really what I wanted was a wrapper. So let me create a wrapper around Laravel Wink. So here is Wink. Now I am going to create a package, but it's going to be a Wink wrapper. So it's essentially Wink with extras. And I think to some extent you could say that's still the case. But as I started doing and another thing, I started adding the roots, the views, the controllers, I suddenly started hitting constraints. And I realized that actually the CMS does not include comments, for example, and I'm using the database of the CMS as my core database here. I could create a separate one, but it makes no sense really to create a separate database just for the comments on the blog that the CMS does. So I might want to add extra columns. So, and also sort of my commands now, I can't really call them Wink commands because they're my own package. And I suddenly realized that actually I wasn't doing a wrapper. I was reinventing. I was taking the inspiration of Wink and actually creating a really different concept. And luckily, in the spirit of open source, Wink is MIT licensed, which means that you're the creator themselves is happy to for anyone to change it, to tweak it, to remake it, to sell it, to do whatever they want with it. So so that's when I went, okay, it's not a wrapper, it's a package, and I'm gonna name it Rapid, and that's how Baby Rapid was born. And you know, I think many people would say my baby is not very pretty, it's not very clever, but it's my baby and I love it. So so Laravel Rapid was born in this way. And what it was now, it was no longer just a wrapper, it was actually its own idea. And the idea was a 5-minute minimum viable website generator. And I realized that the use cases for this were much broader. So one use case was mine. I am a dev, a Laravel dev, and I want to blog. And the Laravel community is incredibly active. I've started dabbling a little bit in Symfony, and it was quite a shock to me that when I asked, are there any resources? Are there any tutorials? Are there blogs? People, all the Symfony devs send me to 3 places. Symfony Slack, Symfony Docs, and I forget what the third one was, but a third one. Yeah, I forget. But basically, the 3 places where you learn about Symfony. And that tells you how good they are. The community is fantastic. The Slack community is fantastic. The docs are wonderful, really, really good. So it's all you need. But oh yeah, the third one was SymphonyCasts, where you can get sort of video courses and tutorials. So those three resources are superb. But in contrast, Laravel has 3,000 of each of those. Every Laravel developer is blogging, is sort of creating resources, videos, etc. And maybe it's because it's aimed, or it's not aimed, but it's partly targeted at beginners, startups, the kind of people who consume a lot of this information and produce it. But for whatever reason, it's a very thriving community. So anyone who is there, for every Laravel dev who's blogging out there, I am willing to bet there's 500 with a blog idea. So if you can get someone like me, a Laravel user, to blog in 5 minutes and take out all the intervening pain in the ecosystem they know, they'll probably want to use it. A second use case would be, if you're an outfit that creates websites for other people or for your mates, actually you can use this package and tweak it and modify it if need be. But suddenly you've got an instant in under 5 minutes, you have created the scaffolding that you need to actually deploy a website for your friends, for your clients. Anything small is there. And likewise, small, but again, expandable, right? It's something that can become an application. It's something that can become software as a service. And that's the third use case. If you are a startup, for example, and you're building your new application, or even you're an existing company and you're building a new product, then being able to very quickly scaffold your page, your blog, everything that you need to have a presence whilst you work on your application in the same environment could be useful. So those are the kind of use cases that I could see for something like this. And feel free to tell me that something like this already exists. But my search for it did not really turn up anything, particularly in the PHP ecosystem. But also, I think in general, I didn't actually turn up anything quite like that. So having begun on a package and created a repo and begun on had a kind of the beginnings of a product, the next step was making it available on Packagist. For those of you who may not know, the way you sort of use packages in PHP is lots of us create these wonderful bits of functionality that you don't have to reinvent and save you lots and lots of time. So I'm using the package from them Said, and somebody might use my package, etc. And the way we do it is that we store our software on GitHub, and then we link a repository to packages, which is the sort of package ecosystem and mechanism by which we can use Composer to include any package into our application. So now you can go to packages, find Laravel Rapid, and do Composer require, and you now have the package in your application, and your application is ready to run. And in fact, that is really all that's needed. And I'll show that in a second. And the final step is collaboration. I've got my package. So now I've created, or rather added to my GitHub repository, a README with an installation guide, with contributor guidelines, a project board of where I am, a set of issues with brief descriptions. They can be improved, where any of you can come and chip in. And that is now, I think, the baby complete, the baby born, as it were. We now have a baby Laravel package ready to go. So that is what you would do if you were to create your own package. So now comes the moment of truth, which is the live demo of the application, of the package, and a kind of window into the code and what lies behind it. So this is where we're at. We are in an almost empty directory. There's two images that I will use, but there's nothing there. So this is where you start. You have no application, nothing exists whatsoever. If somebody wants to look at the clock, then you can time it and see how long this takes. So the first thing we do is we download Laravel. So what I'm doing here is a curl command that says, get me, do the command Laravel build and create a new Laravel application called rapid test. And then it has bash in case I need to sort of follow a command. So if I click on this, now Laravel is installing. It is installing the full Laravel application, which today, the latest version includes Laravel Sail, which was released recently, which is a Docker wrapper for Laravel. It is a bit like Lando, which Oliver mentioned, but much lighter touch and cleaner in some ways. So it's asking, this is why bash, it's asking for my password. And it's asking for my password so it can have permissions in all the relevant Laravel directories for everything that happens next. So now I have a Laravel application. If I went to local, sorry, no, at the moment it's empty. So it says here, dive in with cd rapid test and vendor bin sail up. So sail is essentially, as I say, a wrapper on top of Docker Compose, and which is on top of Docker, of course. And it has a Docker file, which includes everything you need to run your application locally. It includes your MySQL layer, your server, PHP, the whole thing. So this is what I'm going to do. I will cd to rapid test, and you can see that we now have Laravel installed. If I went to localhost, nothing would show because, of course, it's not going up. Now, I have made a shortcut. Instead of doing vendor bin sail up, I just need to do s up. And now you can see that it is creating the containers. Sorry, it was creating them. I need to add the D for detached, otherwise you get that bump. So detached means that it happens in the background and you don't have to see every single action, just like it is showing us. So, and this happened because I didn't actually use my normal shortcut, which is sup. Sup runs vendor bin sail up D, which is detached. And now all of that menu that you saw above is happening in the background. But what we do have is the containers. We have the Mailhug, Redis, MySQL, Selenium, Mailysearch, and yeah, and the main app. So here we are. Let's clear the screen. So now, if we went to localhost, we would see the main Laravel page. Because of use, I won't demonstrate that just now. But basically what we have is a virgin Laravel application, nothing in it. So this is where we now bring in Laravel Rapid, the package that we're discussing. And what we do is Composer, so it's sail, Composer require LeanC9 and Rapid, I think it is. So there we are. It is installing Laravel Rapid. That's it. That's all you need to do. We're in. So now the only command I will run is sail artisan rapid site. If you weren't using sail, you would do PHP artisan, and the command that I've created is rapid site. So if I do rapid site, the S is saying that it's running it inside the container. It says publishing Wing assets and Wing configuration. Wing was installed correctly. Then it runs the migrations for the Wing database. And then it creates the storage links, and finally tells you, register your details to access your CMS. So what is your blog's title? I'm going to call it Dev on a Journey. What is your email address? I'm going to invent one, isma@isma.com. Choose a password for your CMS. I'm going to use pass, don't tell anyone. It's actually hashed in the background. And type a brief author bio. This is a test bio. I want to be an astronaut. So your details have been stored in the author table. You may log into your CMS at the -wing endpoint using isma@isma.com and your chosen password. Then it's building the blog controller. It's created successfully, building the blog root. The roots have been added to your app's roots web PHP file. We're publishing your blog views and your blog templates. They are now in your app's resources views blog directory. And your website is now ready for use. You may view your site at blog endpoint at your website. And if you go to your Wing endpoint, you can see the CMS and blog for your blog. So a bit of repetition in there. Clearly, some of the feedback can be cleaned. That's it. You're ready to go. I'm going to, again, stop sharing this screen and share the website. And now, if we do this, what it's done, it's redirected. I've inserted a redirect, assuming this is a kind of new application, in case you want to have a different homepage than a blog. If it is your blog, then it goes here. Later, you can tailor it as we may have a look. But as you can see, now we have Dev on a Journey, musings about life, the universe, and everything about me. This is a test bio. I want to be an astronaut. And you can follow on Twitter at Dev on a Journey. And useless next that needs tweaking. It also has what actually remains just sort of, placeholders. These don't do anything yet, but in the next iteration, this will actually be populated through either sort of separately, but probably in the registration route if you want to add them. So as I said before, or as the instructions said, if you go to the Wink endpoint, you should get to your CMS. And here is the login. So we created Isma@Isma, and we gave the password pass. And now if we log in, here we are. There are no posts, and we have our CMS. So we can start writing our first post. We have the option of a rich editor or Markdown. So if we try a rich editor, we can call this test post 1. This is my first post. It can be, you can even change it here. styled even with headings. So if we go here and we give it a heading, now we have a heading here. In fact, let's get rid of the underscore. So you can write and write. And if we copy and paste to add some volume, here we are. So here you have your first draft text. You can go here and add an image. So we could add space, for example, and we can crop it so it fits the right dimensions. You can add a caption, and then you save it. Now it's associated with this post. You can sort of modify the slug, add tags, sort of put an excerpt, which you can obviously use later in your views. You are able to add the meta description, the Facebook card image, card description, etc. So this is an example of the kinds of things. This all comes with Wink out of the box, but actually we might want to add LinkedIn, for example. We might want to add other things. So it might be that this is one of the things that we will tweak at some point. And here you would see the preview, and then you can choose to publish it. So if I don't publish it, if we now go back to this blog, it is the same, nothing has happened. But if I now choose to publish it, I can decide when to publish. I can publish it in future. So you can do all your blogs and schedule their publication. So now the post has been published. If we now reload, we now have our test post with our about me, with sort of by Dev on a Journey, published then. This is my first post, can be styled, even with headings, etc. And yeah, you can, if you click on it, you would go into the individual blog, etc. So here we are. If we then go here, we can see our posts, we can create pages, tags, we can have more than one author if need be, and obviously that's why we have the auth. And so yes, if we were to create another post, we could write this one on Markdown. So we can call it test post 2 and say, this is my home office. And I like it. Let's see. Let's add an image. I shall. There it goes. We save it. Let's publish it. And now, if we do this, here it is. Actually, I think my Markdown could be improved. I think I may need to unescape it for Markdown. So yeah, good thing to spot. But basically, Wink allows you to do both, to style it both in Markdown. When you style it in Markdown, I think it converts it into HTML, and then it kind of displays it. So this is it. And you can further edit the post. And you can convert it to draft, and suddenly it should have disappeared. Yes, it has disappeared. So you can see it does what you need to just get started instantly, right? If I hadn't been talking about this, I can tell you that from without even downloading Laravel from an empty directory, it takes me 2.5 minutes to get to being able to write my first post and publish it. So it's an extremely fast process. So the last bit that I'll share now is the coder, obviously, to give you a sense of what is involved. So one last screen share. So here we are. This is the package Rapid. This is what you would download. And you can see that it has the, it's structured around the art, which is used by Wink, the config that is there to, is a file that you publish, so you can later configure a Wink in your application. I'll show it in a second. You have your public, which is again used by Wink for the CMS, your resources, and we'll go back to publishable, but basically everything here is Wink except the publishable ones, which are the template that that you saw in dark mode that I displayed. So this one is the bit that I created that gets published into your own application. The roots are again for Wink. And then this is the actual program, the actual package. This is Laravel Rapid. And you have your composer.json, which is where you define what the package will be. This is how packages will read it, and how when you require it, everything else will happen. We'll look at it in a second. It's got a package.json and package, json.log for Wink, again, for the assets there. So all of that is used in the commands. So let's get into the actual package. The package is essentially two things. It is the CMS, which is the Wink model and Wink functionality. I think I will move it into its own directory rather than have it all here. But basically, you have Wink, and then you have, as with Laravel, the Rapid Service Provider, the service provider, which we'll see in a second. Then you have your HTTP folder, which is used by Wink. So this is the bit that is used to run the CMS. All of this is the CMS. The same with the mail, in case you want to reset your password, and the Wink migrations that create the tables that in which you store everything, your author, your bio, etc. So the bio, for example, that we created in the site gets stored in the author table in that the migration describes. Rapid itself, the work that I've done, is a console application. So Wink comes with install and migrate, and everything else is Rapid at this stage. So you have all the commands that generate the application. You have stubs for the controller that we will be giving to the new Laravel application. And as I mentioned before, you have the publishable blog views that give you the view. So this is the structure of the application, which is fundamentally CLI, a command line application that generates, that publishes stuff into your, that on top of the stuff, the logic that it does in the back, publishes onto the new Laravel application, which we call Laravel Rapid Test in this case, or whatever you want to call it. It publishes your controllers, it edits your routes, and it adds the views. So let's look at the commands in order. The first command, I hope the font is large enough. By the way, the PHP Storm JetBrains pro tip is that you can go into the settings and enable mouse wheel zoom. So that's what I've done. I've enabled mouse wheel zoom, which allows me to sort of very conveniently modify the size of it. So this was the original install command that came with Wink. It's now been changed to Rapid in the signature. This is how Laravel commands work. They are sort of a bit of syntactic sugar on top of on top of Symfony command package. So you have a signature, which is rapid install, a description, which is what it will do, which installs all the Wink resources, and the handle, which has the logic of what it will do. Here it has a comment of what it's doing. In this case, it's calling silent. So it means that your console does not show the command being called, which is publishing the Wink assets, and it is publishing the Wink configuration, and then it gives you an info message that we saw, which says Wink was installed successfully. And that is all it does. All this does is publish your the assets that allow you to view the Wink CMS and a config file that you can modify to make your CMS work for you. And then the second thing that comes with Wink is the migrations. So you can migrate, and you have the optional email and password. So I've added this. The original one only had migrate, and it provided you with a dummy email and password, and you had to log in with that dummy email and password, create a new account for yourself, and then be able to log in. Instead, what I've done is create these options that take parameters. So now Rapid Migrate takes the parameters email and password, so that when we register, we are able to create the migrations and include our own personal email and password authentication, so we can access the CMS without having to sort of copy and remember the password that is given in the console to connect. So it was actually very user-friendly. Now it works sort of straight away, as we saw, with our email and password. So what it does is it goes to the config of Wink database connection, which uses the main database connection of your Laravel application. So where your sale Docker file in this case is configured. So DB connection in your .env for those of you who have used Laravel or other .env files. The Wink config is by default anchored to DB connection, which means that on your existing DB connection, it will create the Wink database. And it will, yes, here is the path to the vendor, which is the package of Rapid. So it will find the migrations in SRC in the package. And sort of if the option force has been passed, then it will run. So all these are optional commands. And yeah, so now Wink is ready to use. You now have your CMS running, and it is already authenticatable, or rather, if you pass these parameters, it will be authenticatable by those parameters that you pass to the command line. Which takes us to the register command, which I've created. So this is what allows us to register. What is your blog title? Really, this will be in the next iteration. At the moment, this is a minimum viable product. It's a proof of concept. But what we will do is not just create the blog page, but you'll be able to specify what pages you want to create. So I want a home page, I want a blog page, I want whatever 5 pages you want. And this will give you the option to configure that. Then what is your email address and your password? And of course, this is what will be passed to the migrate command that we saw. So, and so here we will store that question. You can see that we're using the nice syntactic sugar of Laravel command. You say ask. So it asks you, what is your email address? Password input equals this secret. Choose a password for your CMS. And your bio, ask this, etc. So we now create an author instance with ID, name, title, bio, etc. So now our database will have us, which means we can now log in and we have that nice bio that gets displayed in our homepage. And we now give people an info. Your line just means create a break. And in the info will go, your details have been stored so people know that has happened and they can find it in the author table. And you can now look to your CMS at the Wink endpoint using, and we're printing the email and password, or rather the email, not the password. We just hope you remember the password that you have entered. So now this takes us to the controller command, where we will create a controller in the front. So for that, we do rapid controller is the command that takes the name of the controller that you will give it. And it creates a controller. We give it the default of blog controller, but if you wanted to, you could add a different name. If you wanted to sort of create a new controller and name it something else, then you would. And it would create, instead of being called blog controller, it would be called sort of whatever controller. But if you don't do anything, it will be called blog controller, which is what it is called at the moment. And we get the stub that will contain the actual controller that we're going to create in the new app. So in your new app, if you were to just run the command, instead of rapid site, you went rapid controller, you would get just the controller created. And the controller so yes, if you want a quick overview, I don't want to spend too much time, you do the get path to know where to put it. So you're getting the namespace of your app. So in this case, it would be rapid test, for example. And we're using all that to finally find, because it's a Laravel app, we know that it's going to come with an HTTP controllers directory. And that's a wonderful thing about working inside a framework as opposed to a PHP package. By being not framework agnostic, we know where everything will go, so we can just put it in there without worrying about how you've organized your application. So in your controllers, you will have the blog controller stub. And the controller is quite simple here. We use the Wink author and Wink post models. We call it a dummy class. You need to call it dummy class and dummy namespace if it's a stub that you're going to be publishing. We create an author and posts model that we then pass to the Blade view. And the view will now be able to use authors and posts. And we will add tags in case we want to use them. And we will order them in descending order. So that means that the latest thing, each newer post will be shown first. And then we will have a show method to display only a single blog if we click on it. So now we have our controller. We need to create a root. So we have a rapid root command, which means you can run each of these individually. You have quite a lot of control. If you just want to create a root that, has all this boilerplate already that is playing with your database, then you can just use that. So it's a rapid root and we've got sort of, here is that takes the controller parameter. If you input it in the command, if you do rapid root and you tag a different controller, it will tag a different controller. But otherwise, it will have as a default, the equal gives you a default, the blog controller. And the description, it's of a type root. And here is a handle. You have the controller that takes the controller parameter you've given it, the argument. The boilerplate root will be the view welcome. The redirect will be to blog. You will push at the moment. So this is the implementation. I'd love to know if you've got better ideas. At the moment, what I'm doing is I am adding to the bottom of the file of your roots web's PHP file. So you might have, your home page, you might have 5 things there. And at the bottom of it, I will add the roots this root, which essentially says on the blog endpoint, give me the controller show method. That's what it will do. So find the blog controller and trigger the show method in the blog controller. And I'm also doing a redirect, assuming this is a new implementation, because I think you might want to have your own homepage. But again, in 5 minutes, you're ready to go. So if you haven't got your homepage ready, at least you have a blog page ready. And if anyone goes to your homepage, they will be automatically redirected to your blog. Obviously, you can change that in your actual application once you're there. If those roots already exist, it will error and tell you that already exists and not add them. So it checks that you're not duplicating it and that it already is there. Otherwise, put the file put contents, add it to your roots file. And finally, you have the view command where you will publish a view to a views blog directory in your, to your resources views. You'll create a blog directory and you'll publish this view. And that's how you see it. And the view is, and then you need a service provider. So your service provider will register the roots for Wink, the auth for middleware for Wink, your publishing. It will load the views from the resources views directory. And then it will register the Wink roots, so you can do the Wink CMS. It will use the authenticate middleware, so you can log in, and the auth guard. And then we do the publishing. So here we'll register what we're going to publish. We're going to publish the views in the views publishable folder. So we're not publishing the Wink views, or rather we are, but we're publishing them separately. So the actual views we're publishing in the publishable. So this will publish into the resources views blog. It will publish the rapid views that are generated by the view command. We will also publish the assets for Wink and the config for Wink that you can modify in your main app. And finally, we will register our actual commands. So we have an install command, the migrate command, the register command, the controller command, the root command, the view command. All of these commands are registered here, and now they are usable. Now you can run the CLI command and it will work. And finally, I have added the one to rule them all, the cite command, Laravel cite. I'm sorry I hadn't magnified all this before. It's probably not been helpful. But what the cite command does is, oops, sorry. There we go. Where is cite? Cite. The cite commands essentially just runs all of them, right? It creates rapid install, then it calls rapid migrate, then it calls the storage link. It creates a registration menu that we fill in to then pass the parameters from the registration to the rapid controller command and pass the parameters required for the root and pass the parameters required for the view. And then at the end of it, the whole thing has been created. The index .blade is the view that we're publishing. At the moment, this will be broken down into blade sections, but at the moment it's just a single file. I'm pulling Tailwind from HTTP. This will exist locally at some point, but basically this is it. You now have that. We don't have really, I don't think that the time to review. Let me very quickly just see if if we can do this. No, it's a bit too complicated. So yeah, I won't show you what it looks like, but in your application, basically, if you weren't in the package, if you were in your actual application, what you would see is that you would have this file on your roots, and you would have this file on your HTTP controllers directory, and you would have the config for Wink in the config side, so you can tweak it. And obviously, if you've done sail up and run your migrations, you will have your database in your database. If you're using something other than sail, again, once you've run the migrate, it will exist there. So that is the code. And at top speed, just to finish, the very last thing is just to very quickly say, this is a repository in Laravel Rapid. Here is the code with the README on how to install it. And for collaboration, there is a project with the kind of tasks ahead and the roadmap and what I'm working on, what you might want to work on. Each of these are issues. You can see that the issues are all labeled as enhancement, investigation, good first issue, help wanted, etc. And so you are ready then sort of to collaborate. That repo gets linked to, it's very simple. You go to packages, you connect your repo, you make a hook, and every time you push onto packages, you get your package updated. And dev main is the one it's used, and these branches are branches I'm working. They really shouldn't be showing here as versions, so I'll need to clear that up. But basically, there you are. Once you're in Rapid, and once you've connected it to your GitHub repo, then any pushes you do to your to main will be reflected here, and anybody who does compose or require liamc9 Rapid will have their instant website as I demoed. So that's it. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can find me on Twitter, on Dev on a Journey, or you can email me. And to collaborate, just go to this GitHub repo and fork off and do your pull request. There's a guide to contributors in there. Or just reach out to me. I'd love some ideas. So please, if you can, I realize it's quite late. So if you're going to go after this, message me and tell me whether it's a good idea, whether something already exists and I'm duplicating it, whether you would do the roots differently. Anything that you'd like to tell me, please do. And by all means, join me if you think this has legs and somebody might use it. If it becomes, if it grows up from baby to child and eventually with your help to an adult. So thank you very much again. And if anybody doesn't have to rush off, I'm very happy to take any comments or questions.